Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to yet another Cutter Degrassism. And today, well, it's also a Cutter Top 10 poll. Well, not top 10, it's a top 15 poll. And we're looking at the top 15 two-parters in Degrassi history. Many Degrassi episodes are just like one and done, like they're just a certain episode title. And some of them are two-parters that contain details that, you want to get out, but you want to do it in a two-parter. And add to the narrative. Now, there were some things like I had actually done, well, all the seasons that had two parters from 1 to 14. Next class did not have any two parters. So practically those episodes were eliminated. So from seasons 1 to 14, I picked one, and then there were 6 seasons, I picked a second one. And all that actually made sense with two parters. They had to be two parters, and I know that season 10 to 13 loved to do the two parters, so I had to check which one was good and all that. I actually did add one Degrassi Junior High two parter. I almost put the Degrassi High two parter Showtime because that's the one that saw Claude, you know what. But the fact of the matter is that I couldn't go through with it because the one guy, I can't remember his name. I put him up, Grateful Guy or something. I'll have to look through my categories and all that because I know darn tuning that I did another post. I did all that stuff. So Gullible You, aha, Gullible You. Did it something about the best two parters, and then I took them all, and then I just said, I'll expand on it and make it a top 10. Well, top 10, and then I made it top 15. So there were some bad preliminary round results, so I made 3 polls of 5 to make it from 1 to 15. There were a couple of poll, like you'll see the results at the end, like the final results. There are going to be some changes because of how crappy the competitors did in their polls and all that. The 11 to 15 poll, everyone voted. There was at least one vote for everybody. And the 1 to 5 and 6 to 10 polls did not have that luxury. So practically, I had to make some changes. But I'll let you know what changes were made. Okay, you ready? Let's do it. Number 15 on the list is Standing in the Dark, season 7, the season 7 premiere. It contains the fact that Darcy gets serious with Peter and all that, although that Peter should not be with Darcy in the first place. And, Peter, like, Miss Hatsalakos is okay with it with Peter and Darcy, but Darcy is not. Darcy's parents don't want her around Peter for obvious reasons because of Peter's reckless behavior. And I don't know why Darcy wants to stay with Peter and all that. She's probably got some self-image problems. Anyway, Darcy sneaks away from a Christian thing to go on a ski weekend with Peter and Manny, who now has blonde hair and looks ugly. That's just my opinion. But the fact of the matter is that they go to a ski weekend and Darcy uses the washroom, and then some guy drips some stuff into Darcy's drink, and then Darcy, passes out, and someone ends up raping her. So the problem was that, Darcy thought Peter did it, but Peter didn't. And then Darcy realized that there's this guy spiking people's drinks and all that and having their way with young girls. And Darcy realizes that she is the victim. The Christian club is not too happy with it, despite the fact that Darcy's interaction was not of her own kind. Of course, they have the whole Christian thing about the fact that you had sex before marriage, no matter what happens, no matter if you're the one at fault or not. That's a sin and takes away her purity ring. Fortunately, Peter and Manny give her a purity ring. But afterwards, Darcy goes into self-loathing. She almost takes her own life twice and all that. She can't explain to her parents her problems because, as a Christian goody-goody, she has to give in to her parents. And she infernally gets snake into deep trouble and all that. But that was not the main, that was the main plot, but there was a side plot. And the side plot was that Lakehurst, after all this crap had happened in season 6 and, inadvertently killing JT. I know they did, but the school didn't kill JT. One rogue guy did. They had to share with Degrassi because their school burned down. Unfortunately, we never get to know what happened at the school. If it was a fire caused by Lakers's bad stuff, like their own maintenance problems, or someone torched it. I figured Jay was part of the reason or something like that. But anyway, they had to merge with Degrassi, and Toby's not too pleased with it. But basically, he gives in saying that maybe there'll be friends that you'll never met. Hmm. Number 14 is Believe, the season 13 episode in which Zoe goes through a rape trial. As Becky's brother Luke and his accomplice Neil ends up having sex with Zoe without her consent because she was passed out. Becky finds the video and gets Luke in trouble, and Zoe finally gets her court case with against Luke and Neil. Miles is put on stand and basically does that with Zoe, and Maya blows off and dumps him off, saying, "You can't be with Zoe." After all, Maya has a point because Zoe doxed Maya, and Maya wrote back a song, and then she got put in the rubber room, and she got reacquainted with Sig. Nice job, Snake. So anyway, Becky decides to testify on Zoe's behalf, but her parents refuse to have Becky do all that because she says that that you have to do honor for the family and you have to protect your brother. Luke even tells Becky the situation, saying that you have an honor because I protected you after you lost our grandmother's ring. And Becky says, actually, no. The next day, I confessed to everything. And then she asks Luke point blank about stuff, and Luke admits it. And then Becky testifies against Luke. I mean, Luke told Becky everything and all that. Becky might have pulled back. But, Becky's parents are upset that Luke is now in juvie and Neil as well, thanks to Becky, and basically put the freeze on her. They can't kick her out because they're going to be afraid she's going to talk and all that. And she's not 18 yet. And, I wouldn't put it past Becky's dad, who was a minister, to lose his job in Toronto because of that, because of his son being a rapist. But the fact of the matter is that, Zoe got her just desserts. Like Zoe got her revenge. Unfortunately, season 14, she seemed to be a bitch. And I think that, Zoe was trying to get her body back, her self-image back, but she became a massive bully, from victim to prick. Yeah, Becky, like I also think that Becky's parents kind of have a hatred towards Becky because of her relationship with Adam, even though it ended badly. I think it was just a way to get mad at Becky, but they couldn't get rid of Becky because, Becky might have talked. I'm actually surprised Becky didn't just yell at the court saying that the parents forced her to do perjury because then they would have been in trouble. Never mind. Number 13 is Our Lips Are Sealed from season 5. This was Emma's eating disorder episode. Everything was spiraling for Emma. She was with Peter for some odd reason. I think it was a rebound because when Sean left her in season 4, Emma felt betrayed and all that, and was in love with Peter in season 5. But Peter wanted to be with Manny, and even though Peter got Manny in deep trouble with the whole shirtless video and all that, Emma wanted to go after Peter for Manny, but she still wooed over Peter. I think she just wanted a guy because Sean would have been perfect for her. I mean, he saved her from Rick's gun, and Emma wanted a rebound. Or Emma was probably wanting to be with someone, and then was waiting for Sean secretly to come back to her. So things are going bad for Emma. Spike yells at Snake for kissing Hatzalakos and forcing Emma to keep quiet, although Emma couldn't keep quiet. Emma now has more on her plate thanks to Snake being out of the house and Spike in shock and all that. She's got a lot of pressure. She gets Spike and Snake back together, but she's still got the eating disorder and all that. And it doesn't help matters that she tries to help Manny lose weight for a role. And it kind of gets me. It's like, wait a minute, wasn't one of the rules Manny was supposed to abide by when she was living with Snake is she's not allowed to do acting for a year or something? That's what gets me. That's actually a what if. That's a question I have to write down in the Degrassi Reddit stuff and all about that. Like, I get the opinion. But the fact of the matter is, that's neither here nor there. Emma basically is going to be outed for her eating diary and all that. But then she blurts out she's been with Peter. That's why she can't sleep and all that. Manny's upset. And then Peter says that Emma's got problems. She faints in the hallway. Hazel wants to comfort her, but she doesn't want to. They finally set up an intervention for Emma, but Emma blows them all off, calling Manny a drunk chick. Peter taking advantage of a drunk chick, that'd be Manny, and Snake for kissing his mother. I think she wanted to go after Spike. But then she basically gets mad at Manny, wants Manny to get out of her house, and then has a panic attack, goes to the hospital, and wants to beat this eating disorder. And technically, she does. So, everything was accumulated. The problem I have with that episode is no mention of the shooting and all that. I mean, Snake should have said, Emma, is all these problems due to the shooting last year? Because Emma, I think, was internalizing her problems with, she butted into the whole Rick situation and nearly died. I think she was basically not willing to do causes anymore because she was worried that she was going to be attacked and she could die. It would have been nice to see them talk about it, but I guess it was kind of taboo and all that. Number 12 is Ghost in the Machine, the season 4 premiere. That's the one in which Paige finds out that her rape against Dean is finally going through to the courts. So Paige has to testify against Dean, but she has second thoughts. But Spinner basically tells her that she has to go through with it. But Paige says there's going to be a lot of stuff you're going to find out about that you won't like. And Spinner says, I'm going to support you no matter what. So he does. And Paige goes to trial against Dean. Dean's lawyer presses Paige for a lot of things, but Paige refuses to budge and all that. She gives good testimony. The judge agrees, but the judge has to throw it out because of lack of evidence. It's like, are you like victim blaming Paige for not going to the police sooner? She went to the police. Was there no admissible evidence from Sauvé or someone else? She might have had to take a rape kit. But the fact of the matter is that Paige, was upset that Dean got away scot-free. And unfortunately, at that time, 20 plus years ago, it was actually a common occurrence. It was so shocking. Even Dean's lawyer was stunned by the assault. I mean, she had to protect Dean because she was Dean's lawyer. But I think she realized that Paige was not pulling any BS. Paige is so angry, she decides to take Spinner's car and crashes into Dean's car. Spinner gets in trouble for it, but Spinner will take the blame, but Paige refuses to let Spinner and basically tells off Dean saying that I'm confessing. That's what good people do when they do bad stuff. And Dean refuses to be there, saying that, Paige wants to be with him because otherwise, why is she going after him? What a prick. Anyway, there was a subplot to that. And the subplot to the episode was Craig getting money from his dead dad because he turned 16. Joey wants Craig to invest some of his money because he's going to lose his house and his business and all that. I mean, I think Snake even said something about that. I mean, Craig could have been helpful to Joey and all that. But, Joey said it all wrong and admits that Craig can do whatever he wants. Craig and Ashley want to buy a guitar. And you actually can hear in the background some conversation between Armstrong wearing a metallic Toronto Blue Jays shirt, kind of like what I'm wearing, but with Radich. And Radich says, I don't have much for the school budget and all that. It points out that, that maybe Radich took Rick back because of the GPA and then, they get the money and all that. I wonder if Degrassi really got shafted on the budget because of the whole Rick situation. But yeah, that was kind of weird. And number 11 is Can't Live With Them, the Degrassi Junior High episode. That was the season 3 premiere in which Wheels' parents, or well, kind of his adoptive parents, quote unquote, died. That actually was the number 10 in the 6 to 10 poll, but because it scored 0 and the winner of the 11 to 15 scored pretty good, I swapped places. So no, that's number 11, Can't Live With Them. Wheels' parents do not want Wheels hanging out with Joey at all. Snake they're okay with, but Wheels sneaks off from a movie date to be with Joey and practice for the sit remedy. But finds a police car in front of his house and figured that they called the cops. Nope. Wills's grandmother comes out of the car and tells Wills that the parents died thanks to a drunk driver. Wheels is upset by it. Radich gives us sympathy alongside the twins, Heather and Erica. Spike is at the thing. I think Liz is there too. Snake and Joey. And basically, yeah, it was amazing. Wheels couldn't process things, and he burst out to his grandmother that he snuck out of that movie date to be with Joey and felt terrible and felt guilty. And his grandmother was okay with it. And he blasts Joey saying, I should never have been with you. I should have been with my parents. But then you probably would have been dead too. Like Wills couldn't process it. And basically he nearly failed grade 8, but they passed him through because of all the grief he's gone through. But he weaponized his trauma, I think. And Wills's grandmother finally got rid of his bullshit and kicked him out. Wheels was in a downturn. And unfortunately, that was kind of like Neil Hope's home life, which sucks. Number 10 is the winner of the 11 to 15, but I jumped him up one spot to number 10. It's Tears Are Not Enough from season 2. I know that technically this is a Craig one, and Craig's introduction actually beat this thing. I actually got to the top 10 as well, higher up. But Tears Are Not Enough is when Craig's dad, Albert, comes back into his life and seemingly has changed. But no, he hasn't. A skunk doesn't change its stripe. So basically, Craig is upset by his dad's stuff and all that. And then he finds out from Joey that Albert died in a car accident. Probably crashed his car on purpose or lost control and all that. But Craig just doesn't know how to process it. His tormentor is dead, but his dad's gone. Craig is told, well, it's near the end of the school, they do a luau dance, but Craig is told by Radich that there's no way he should be at school. That, Radich will make sure that Craig won't fail his exams and all that because that would be fair. And Radich knows because of the whole Will situation. Radich is pretty good. And this was the last episode that Radich had the Chuck Norris look, which actually, with a beard, which actually made him more human than his scoury look in season 3 and 4. But the fact of the matter is that Craig just doesn't know how to process it. He laughs at Albert's funeral because of his colleagues saying that how much of a family man he was and he was jerk and all that. I mean, Craig has a right to be mad at Albert because, Albert punches him and like physically beat him. I think in all likelihood, when Julia left Albert for Joey, Albert needed an outlet for his anger. And guess who was that? That's right, it was Craig. The simple fact is that, Craig didn't deserve it one iota. And then there was the cute subplot in the luau thing about Spinner and Paige and Jimmy and Ashley fighting for Luau King and Queen. But Ashley, no, sorry, not Ashley. I don't know. Jimmy and somebody. I would say Jimmy and Hazel, but that can't be right. Nevertheless, Craig and Ashley win Luau King or Queen. I think it was just a sympathy vote. And Craig hallucinates that Albert's in the audience and wants to go after Albert and tears down the decorations looking for him. And everyone's like, stop, Craig, stop. And then Raj says, let it get it out of his system. And then Terry comes in and comforts Craig, saying that she lost her mother while she was at a birthday party. So, anyhow, all right, at number 9 is Accidents Will Happen from season 3. This is, of course, the episode that in Canada was shown without any problems, but in the US it was banned for a couple of years until Cassie Steele, who wanted to do like a staff picked it, and the US had to show it in season 5 before season 5 started. Anyway, this episode is the fact that Manny realizes she's pregnant by Craig. I don't know if it was the incident on Emma's bed, but it was something. And, Manny doesn't know what to do about the baby and all that. She confides in Spike, and Spike says something to the effect of, maybe your parents would be okay with it. Mine were. Well, her dad walked out on them. And then Manny says, no, because I had a cousin who got pregnant and got shipped off to the Philippines in a convent. So basically, she had to admit to her mom she was pregnant and all that. Well, she seemed to be okay with it. Her and Craig were picking baby names, and Ashley just stormed in and then told everyone that Manny's pregnant. I don't think she wanted to hurt Manny. She just wanted to hurt Craig for cheating on her with Manny and all that. I think she just wanted Craig to pay the price. And in a sense, he did. I mean, Manny and Craig tried to babysit Emma's infant brother Jack to no good effect. And the fact was that, Manny just wasn't ready for motherhood. Although her mother kind of was okay with it, she was okay with the whole abortion thing. Emma is not happy with Manny reporting this kid, saying that there's great adoption agencies. And Manny's like, I can't be a mother at this age. You just can't break open a life. You can't hurt this life. Like Emma, I understand because she was almost aborted and she has that whole abortion problem. I get it. And then when Craig is upset that Manny's aborting the kid, says, I need this baby too. I think in a way he wanted to tip his hand that he wanted this kid because he wanted family. He didn't have true family. I mean, his parents are both dead. Joey he doesn't treat like a father and all that. And the fact of the matter is that, he wants something. Emma then comes to Manny's defense, despite the fact that she's not pleased with Manny having the abortion. She comes to Manny's option and says, it's her body, it's her choice. And if she wasn't my best friend, I'd be furious. And it got me thinking, it's like, wait a minute, Emma and Manny stopped being friends over Manny's attempts to sexualize herself. But I think they were talking and all that. But Emma probably blinked first because Emma probably needed Manny as a best friend. I mean, she was friendless in a sense. But like she understood Craig's things, but basically it's Manny's body and her decision. And Emma scoffs at she doesn't like the idea, but it's up to Manny. It's not up to her. And Manny's like shocked and all that. But yeah, they go through like the doctor like go through the abortion thing at the clinic, like the questionnaire and all that, and then just before Manny goes into the room, then we stop seeing things. I can't remember the subplots. I think one subplot of Accidents Will Happen. I think part one is when Liberty tries to get closer to Sean, but then finds out that Towers has a thing for her. The North Island thing. Number 8 is Jane Says from, ironically, season 8. So Jane Says is in the middle of season 8 when Jane realizes her dad's back in her life, even though that he walked out on the family when Jane was like 5 years old. So Jane doesn't know why she hates her dad. I mean, for walking out. And then through flashbacks, she realizes that her dad would dress her in a certain way. Well, Jane couldn't dress herself properly, and then he would dress her, but then he would put his hand down his pants. I don't need to explain further. Like Lucas was oblivious. He was watching TV in the other room, but he was oblivious in everything. I think that the dad said something to Lucas, and Lucas gulped and said, yeah, okay, fine. And then, that's, well, Lucas should talk. I mean, he's a terrible dad to Izzy in a sense. Doesn't want to be interested in her. It's like up to Mia's mother to take care of it. And Lucas seems to be a non so supportive dad. What an idiot. But of course, this was also the episode in which Shep comes back from his sensitivity training after being exposed in that episode. What is season 8? Standing in the dark? No. Shouting in the dark? Something in season 8. Causing a commotion, that's it. In season 8, when Claire's upset over Shep expelling Connor with his Asperger's and all that because he's different, and calling out Shep's policies for being good with the raw support and the freaks, aka the academics, being nothing. And then Shep gets sent to sensitivity training. The school was not too pleased with him, but he realizes that he needs to help Jane, and Jane wants to be back on the football team. It's up to her, and he won't get in her way. So then they do an alumni football team. I don't know why Lucas got picked. He didn't even graduate from Degrassi. But anyway, Lucas is mad at Jane for accusing their father of things. I mean, Lucas wants his father back in his life, and maybe it'll give him the spark to be a father to Izzy. But then when he realizes that the dad is getting too close to Izzy, he realizes the cycle of abuse could happen again. And so he realizes that and refuses to have his dad back in his life if he's going to be near Izzy. Family goes to therapy. Jane tells her mom about the situation because her mom had to work late and, he would have her way with her. And then Lucas admits he's a piece of crap, but Jane gives him a pass saying they were kids and, Lucas is atoning for his mistakes. Worst part, I always say, is what happens after season 8, this episode with Lucas? Nothing. He doesn't get an episode. He doesn't get an appearance. He doesn't even get mentioned by Jane. That's just pure bullshit. This is the redemption arc we all needed to see, and we didn't get. This is the worst redemption arc fail in Degrassi history. We want to see if Lucas actually redeemed himself in some sort. But then when Mia's taking Izzy to Paris with her, I think it kind of gives the hint that Lucas was not a good dad. But still, number 7 is Mother and Child Reunion, the first ever Degrassi Next Gen episode. Degrassi had, 3 seasons of junior high, 2 seasons of Degrassi High, the Degrassi movie School's Out, which was a hit on CBC in 1992 and had the first known word use of the F word on Canadian TV. Really? Huh. Nevertheless, there was a massive hiatus. John Vision, a CBC teen talk show in 1999, reunited the Degrassi cast, and they were talking about ideas to let Degrassi through. And guess what? Degrassi went back, but not on CBC, but on CTV. Now, there is a documentary on Degrassi called Whatever It Takes that just came out this weekend at the Toronto International Film Festival, and this is being taped September 15th, 2025 for reference. But the fact of the matter is that there was the massive shift from CBC to CTV, and everyone's like, how did CBC lose Degrassi? Well, the budget was the thing. Because CBC is kind of the government station in Canada that basically they had to kiss the Prime Minister's ass and all that. They were budgeted, their budgets were limited. Whereas CTV, as a public broadcaster, had the money, had lots of things, and, they could afford the back lots and the movie and the sets and all that stuff and the filming locations. And that's why PBS, that did Degrassi in the early days alongside CBC, it went to Nickelodeon because Nickelodeon was not a government run station. And of course, Trump is ruining PBS as we speak. But the fact is that, yeah, it was shocking that CBC let CTV swipe it and run with it for 14 years. Yeah, so this was the episode in which Emma thinks she's going to meet a boy named Jordan from online at a hotel, but it's a middle-aged man who wants to have his way with Emma. Fortunately, JT, Manny, and Toby, introduced in this episode, also share concerns that Emma's went in way over her head, and they're the right thing by doing their own sleuthing and then telling Spike and Snake about it, and they save Emma from being in trouble. Emma was being catfished, and this was, I think, 6-7 years before catfishing was part of the popular lexicon. So they did catfishing before it was cool to learn about catfishing. And it was early days of internet stuff, of course, in 2001. So yeah, Emma admits a mistake. Spike says you can come for me for anything. And well, that's kind of 50-50. It does explain Emma's behavior towards Liberty and Manny later in season 1, that Emma got and she was just scared for them, but it never came out. But yeah, but there was a subplot, and the subplot was the reunion of Degrassi High alum and all that. And then Wheels comes in to apologize to Lucy for that accident from School's Out and says he's paying dearly. The poor Americans missed that scene. It was a deleted scene in the US, but unseen, but undeterred in Canada. But yeah, it was amazing. Number 6 is the lowest of the 1 to 5 poll. That it has dropped to number 6, and that's Voices Carry season 4. This was when Craig gets his bipolar problems being like pinpointed. Craig gets invited to Ashley's dad's gay wedding and all that. And he wants to be close to Ashley because that's their relationship. So Craig rents out a hotel room, rents out a tux. He does everything. He steals Joey's credit card to pay for stuff, and has sex with Ashley. Finally, Craig is happy with Ashley. Ashley, for her part, should not have came back to Craig. Craig was a scumbag in season 3. She wrote that song to get back at Craig, and then Craig's apology song woos her and all that. Why would she want to be with this guy? I get it. I'm on Team Ashley on that one, but no. But nevertheless, Ashley and Craig and all that. But then Craig announces that he thinks he's going to marry Ashley later on in life. But Ashley says, no, that's not happening. He's off his rocker. And then he crashes his hotel room. Meanwhile, Joey can't explain things about Craig and all that. But Snake says that, what was his father like? And Joey says, well, he was weird. But it says, maybe the apple isn't far from the tree. He's just being a teenager. And then Snake says something is deeper. And then when Joey gets mad, finds out about the hotel room being trashed under his name, he wants to confront Craig. Craig gets kicked out of the wedding and then comes back home and gives money to Angie to give to Joey, and he's going to run off. He's going to leave. But Joey confronts him, and then Craig beats up Joey, even though Joey was trying to help Craig with his problems. Craig finally gets diagnosed with being bipolar and all that, but Ashley refuses to leave his side. Unfortunately, though, Ashley decides to leave for England and all that, and Craig goes off his meds. There was a subplot, and this subplot was needed. The Degrassi Drama Club wanted to do Dracula. Unfortunately, though, Raj puts a kibosh to it, saying it's too soon after the Rick situation. But JT and Liberty say that it doesn't. It strays from the source material. And Raj says we need something sunny to make sure Degrassi's in everyone's good books. Obviously, it's a kind of a selfish move by Radich. But it also makes sense because now that Degrassi is on everyone's bad side because of the whole Rick situation and all that, he fears Degrassi's going to be penalized in some way and wants to make people realize that Degrassi was good, even though that the students are not too pleased with how Raj has handled the situation. It takes me off. It's like, is he even trying to find out who painted and feathered Rick and all that? But no, I guess not. So Liberty and JT take to Raj to task about with the Raj's song, and he throws them in detention, and then they finally realize that they're perfect for each other, and even JT admits he should be with Liberty. That's the good news. Of course, the next episode was Spark at the Moon, and in the third plot, because the main plot was Spinner trying to be with Manny, and then Paige and Mr. Olander. Plot number 3 was Radich being tossed from Degrassi. He was being reassigned. He could have been fired. He probably didn't want to say. But I think he was reassigned, and I think that the school board didn't fire him because of all his years. And also because they probably figured that if they fire Raj would have probably snapped back saying that it's your stupid policies that made me keep Rick at Degrassi in the first place. I mean, it just ticks me off. Was Radich okay with Rick coming back to Degrassi? Part of me says no, but everything makes Raj look like a total dickwad and all that. Understood. Like, he failed Rick. Fine. He failed the students first. Trust me. I know, and that's a hill I will die on. Okay, top 5 time. Number 5 is When Doves Cry. This was the winner of the 6 to 10, but because of how shitty number 5 was, I swapped them. So When Doves Cry goes to number 5. The fact of the matter is that the season 2 premiere was big. Craig was taking pictures of of Emma and little Angie, and people didn't know why and all that. Craig's dad was upset that he would be late for dinner and then would finally beat him and smash his camera. Albert offers $3,000 to Craig to take the camera, to buy a camera, but Craig wants to use the money for him and Angie to go to BC. And of course, Joey refuses to allow Craig being near Angie at all. But then when Craig decides to play chicken with a train and Sean sees it, Sean and Emma decide to team up to try to tell Joey that Craig's problems are because of his dad, that he beats him. Even Angie pipes up, which is the key pit point that pinpoint that Joy takes everyone seriously. So the fact of the matter for Emma and Sean, like they find out that Craig is at his mom's um, headstone. It's Julia Manning. It's like Julia Jeremiah. Julia was Joey's wife that had died of, of a disease, and Joey was grieving in season 1. It makes sense. Julia left Albert to be with Joey, and obviously Albert uses Craig as a punching bag. It makes sense, does it not? Anyway, of course, that this ranked higher than the season finale, but nevertheless, yeah. I think major subplot was that Degrassi was now turned into a high school because it was supposed to be a middle school for a high school, but that high school shut down, so Degrassi now has to go from 7 to 12. Can't remember any of the subplot. Anyway, number 4 is Pride from season 3. I know it got 0 votes, and you'll see it on the thing, but I think Pride is important to be top 5. This was the episode in which Marco comes out of the closet. I know Riley does too, but Marco beat him to it. But Marco wants to keep his sexuality secret. Ellie finally decides not to be his so-called beard and tells Marco he has to come out of the closet. So he does. Um, Spinner arranges Marco to have a date with Hazel, but Marco walks out on it saying that he has to check his mother's pasta sauce. And Spinner basically walks after him, says, "You dumped a date. You ditched a date with one of Degrassi's hottest students for your mom's pasta sauce? It doesn't make sense." "Yes, it does." "Then tell me because I'm stupid." "Because I'm gay." And that's what happens. Part 2 sees Marco being jumped while going to a hockey game to support Dylan, who's also gay, Paige's brother. But, everyone turns on Spinner because Spinner starts writing homophobic stuff in the bathroom and basically not being caring of Marco. They all just snap at Spinner, and Spinner deserves it, every second of it. They support Marco and turn their back on Spinner. Fortunately, though, Spinner does wise up later on in the season and admits his mistakes and helps Marco out. I can't remember. Was the subplot of Pride when Snake learns he has leukemia? I think so. I don't remember. Number 3 is Bittersweet Sympathy. I can't believe in the 1 to 5 poll that it didn't even get a vote. The top 2 got a vote, but it didn't even get a vote. But come on, Bittersweet Sympathy, the 2-parter from season 12. Come on, it's got to be there. It has to be top 3 for sure. So anyway, what ends up happening is accumulation of Sig's jealousy towards Cam being with Maya. Cam comes from Kapuskasing, 10 hours northwest of Toronto, to Toronto to play on the Ice Hounds, which is not a school team, it's a major junior team. People in the major junior leagues, like in cities that host Ontario Hockey League teams, Western Hockey League teams, and Quebec Hockey League teams, know exactly what I'm talking about. Heck, there's even some cities in the States like Spokane, Tri-City, Saginaw. I would say Plymouth, but I'm wrong. Saginaw, Flint, and Erie that have teams. So Americans know that too. But, it's a major junior team. Because I live in Kitchener, I should know. So anyway, Cam has an attraction towards Maya, and Sig seems to be the jealous type and gets Cam so wound up. Cam gets suspended for hurting Sig. Maya breaks off from Cam, but Cam explains himself, and Maya wants to be near Cam. Cam decides to swipe Maya's stuffed owl Hoot and give it back to her in front of the school. But Sig basically tells Cam, stay out of her life. Jealous boyfriend shit. Cam takes that seriously and offs himself in the JT York Memorial Garden where Eli and Claire were going to have a picnic, but Eli sees the body and tells Claire, call 911, blah, 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 blah. Now, we don't know what happened to Cam. Degrassi did the right thing by not glorifying what the hell happened. But one theory I have, my theory, is that he probably found garden chemicals, drank it, and under the influence of the chemicals, I should not have done that. I should not do that thing. But yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Because as someone who works with garden chemicals at the Canadian Tire Garden Center for the past 4 years, has it been? I should know about toxicity and all that. So yeah, I know what I'm talking about. But then you got some time to think about things. But yeah, it was just terrible. The school just feels angry. Dallas yells at Allie that she should have done something, but we all know Dallas is pissed off at himself because as team captain of the Ice Hounds, he should have seen something and helped Cam out instead of badgering him about his hockey problems. So he is angry. He goes onto the roof and Fiona saves him from jumping because Dallas has a son, Rocky. Cool, cool. Katie and Maya are known about it. Maya, all she just wants to do is play the cello, and she doesn't give a great speech at the memorial saying that Cam was selfish for killing himself. I would have helped him. And everyone thought Maya was off her rocker. She was wrong. But she had a point. Is that suicide is sometimes selfish. Not all the time selfish, but it's selfish more likely than not. And then everyone has to deal with the suicide. Post bittersweet sympathy. Number two, and who got a vote in the 1 to 5 thing, is My Body's a Cage from season 10. This was Adam's introduction into Canadians for a transgender character in a Canadian show. Adam comes from another school who was relentlessly bullied, and we find out that Adam is actually Gracie. Well, she was born Gracie and then turned into Adam, I guess trying to get close to Drew or thinking that she was a male in a female's body. Audra, for all her mother bear bullshit and all that stuff, didn't accept Adam, accepted wanted Gracie back, but finds out that Gracie is self-harms herself and then realizes that she needs to support the transition to Adam. Yeah, for Audra's stuff on getting on Snake's case for the next 3 seasons, she should talk. But I think Audra was worried about how her parents would feel. Like she said, play Gracie one more time for your grandmother, and then you can go back to being Adam. Well, that's kind of stupid. But of course, Adam gets outed by Bianca, who was playing with Adam, but then finds the taped chest and all that. And it's like, it was stupid that Drew wanted to be with Bianca after Bianca did that to Adam. I think Drew was just desperate for love and all that. The things you do for desperation. And number one, by a freaking long shot, you kind of guessed it. This two-parter was going to win. It's Time Stand Still from season 4. Of course, the episode starts with Rick getting harassed by Jimmy and Spinner and put in a dumpster. Rick finally decides to take revenge on his tormentors by spray painting a circle and an X on their cars. Of course, they know it's Rick. Well, Alex says it's Rick, probably to just get him thrown out because everyone is on the anti-Rick bandwagon and all that. They want to destroy him, but Sean inadvertently causes trouble by telling them you can't go to Raj because Raj will want to know why he spray painted the vehicles, and then they know they would have had to incriminate themselves. Rick bumps into Jimmy, and Jimmy is put on the Wacky Brain team with Rick, Emma, and Toby because Heather Sinclair had to get mono and all that. Rick is not too pleased with Jimmy being on the team. He goes to Raditch because he doesn't want to go to Snake, and Raj blows him off. But Rick was not straightforward. He didn't say the words of bullying or anything similar to that. He just said things in his awkward way, and Raditch took him at face value, which was not good. So, what do you do? Well, the fact of the matter is that Rick's alone. Raj pushes him aside. Like, if Rick was more straightforward, Raj would have at worst had to say, well, if this happens again, I need, tell me. Or he should have said, I need proof this is happening. Where's the proof? Because he's a concrete thinker. If Rick had proof, I think Raj would have had to do something about it. I'm just saying. But the fact of the matter is that, Rick's living in his own dream world. He's getting closer to Emma by holding her hand during the quiz competition, whispering, this is for you, when he goes up to do the tiebreaker, who was influenced by Jay and Spinner to do so. Of course, Jay and Spinner were also pissed that Jimmy switched sides because, Rick finally got to Jimmy saying that, He's being tormented, and now Toby is being tormented because he's close to Rick. So yeah, Jay and Spinner set up the paint and feathers for Alex to throw, and he gets paint and feathered. And then, under the influence of the paint and feathers, he tries to kiss Emma, who says she only pitied him get a clue, and he looks forlorn with a trophy. He goes home. He finds his dad's gun and decides to take it with him. He he clutches his backpack. He goes after Paige, but Paige calms him down before the gun is shown, and Rick realizes that Paige could not have done it, and finally apologizes for the first time. He should apologize sooner. So logically, Spinner decides to brag about the paint and feathers to Jimmy, which is the stupidest thing you could do in a sense. And then Spinner realizes that he may be in trouble, that Jimmy's going to narc on him. However, Jay helps Spinner alleviate his guilt by blaming Jimmy for everything. Unbeknownst to, well, they kind of knew that Rick was in the stall and all that. And so Rick gets his gun, shoots Jimmy in the back. If he was serious about killing Jimmy, he would have shot him in the head. But because he had his thought and turned his head this way, he didn't know what to do. Jimmy couldn't get away from the gun. And then suddenly Rick got after Emma. Sean and Toby wanted to go after Emma. Sean wrestles Rick for the gun. It goes off. Rick dies and all that. And then, of course, blame is passed around. Snake is pissed off at Radish for his lack of foresight, and rightfully so. Like, Alex blames herself for being part of it and all that. Spinner wants to go to the police because he thinks that the police are going to go after them. But Jay says, lay low. Oh, and by the way, there was a subplot. Yes, there was a subplot to this. This was when Joey was about to lose his house, and somehow Craig, who was sick with mono, I think he was for Heather, told Cindy, Joey's ex, about the fact of the house and all that. And Joey's upset with Craig saying stuff to Cindy. And then Craig goes to school sick. And guess what? He's the one who first sees Jimmy's prone body. Of course. So, of course, Caitlin swoops in, steals the thunder, buys the house, and basically forces Joey to be under her power. Wow, it's Caitlin. What do you expect? And then they both get a call to the school about Craig having problems, and there was a school shooting, and Caitlin, as a journalist, has to be there. Of course, everyone is upset and everything, and that final montage will get to you. I tell you that. So anyway, thanks for watching this top 15. I know I went longer than I normally did, but hey, a Cliff's Notes thing would do everything no justice. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.